Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our latest knowledge sprint. I'm Dana, Business Development Manager at Red Piranha, and I'm joined today by Arjun, our Product Manager, and Brendan, our GRC Consultant. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the many lands we're joining from today and any Indigenous people present in this webinar. I pay my respects to elders past and present and celebrate the rich diversity of Indigenous cultures and their deep connections to country and waters. Today, we're diving into how Red Piranha's Crystal Eye embeds a configuration management database, CMDB, into its security architecture and why that matters. We'll explore how this integration gives you complete visibility into IT asset relationships, helping you strengthen decision-making, cut response times, and reduce the burden of compliance. You'll also see how this visibility supports smarter change management, incident response, and audit readiness, especially in complex environments like manufacturing and OT. Before I hand over to our experts, I'd like to give a quick introduction to our organisation. Red Piranha was founded in 2015 to address key cybersecurity needs across business and enterprise environments. Our flagship platform, Crystal Eye, is globally recognized for its comprehensive threat management capabilities. We hold several industry certifications, including CREST, ISO 27001, 9001, and we're proud members of Team Defence Australia and the Cyber Threat Alliance. One of our most unique offerings is our SOC as a Service, which provides 24/7 monitoring and incident response. But we've significantly expanded our capabilities since then, now offering a full suite of integrated security, compliance, and risk management solutions. With that, I'll hand you over to Arjun, our Product Manager, who will walk us through how Crystal Eye's CMDB works and how it delivers real-time visibility into asset relationships. Over to you, Arjun.
Thank you, Dana. Hey everyone, this is Arjun, Product Manager at Red Piranha. So today we are going to talk about tracking IT assets, including hardware, software, and network devices from an interrelationship and dependency perspective. We will also discuss the difference between IT asset management and CMDB. And we will also speak about use cases from the manufacturing industry and give you a demo of Red Piranha's CMDB. But first, a background of Red Piranha. So at Red Piranha, we offer companies a holistic security solution for their network security. Red Piranha offers granular access control with a declarative authorization service, also known as DAS, based on zero trust principles, up-to-date weekly threat intelligence reports, real-time intrusion detection, threat detection and response to incidents, endpoint protection, policy enforcement, application whitelisting, and vulnerability management. To set the context, it is difficult to maintain an inventory of all your linked assets. For example, from mergers and acquisitions. So merging the IT infrastructure of two or more companies requires integrating data from both the companies into a single configuration management database. Or else the software assets and their attributes like version numbers, dependency maps, security vulnerabilities, etc. are not tracked, and therefore they cannot be accounted for. With a system like Red Piranha's configuration management database, you would have all your assets classified according to business criticality in order of asset protection priority in case of a data breach and asset compromise. For example, physical devices would be uniquely identified via their own IP address. Their ownership will be linked to employee teams in a hierarchy, and criticality defined according to the data they contain and the data they transport. In the context of cybersecurity, CMDB tracks the software versions and patches against known vulnerabilities, identifying gaps, and attaching a level of risk via asset linkages. IT teams can detect unauthorized configurations by comparing current configurations against approved configurations in the CMDB. The Crystal Eye device will scan your network for vulnerabilities and link those vulnerabilities found to the assets that are directly affected by those vulnerabilities. My colleague Brendan will take it forward. Brendan?
Yeah, thanks, Arjun. Right, so let's have a look at what IT asset management and configuration management database actually is. So ITAM is the practice of systematically tracking, managing, and optimizing your organization's IT assets throughout their entire life cycle, from acquisition to disposal. By combining financial, contractual, and inventory data, an ITAM aims to maximize the value of hardware, software, and cloud services, ensuring that they're being used efficiently, maintained properly, and disposed of appropriately at the end of their life to reduce waste, mitigate risk, and support strategic business decisions. On the other hand, a CMDB is a centralized database that stores information about your organization's IT infrastructure and services. It tracks key components, which we call configuration items, and they comprise your hardware, software, and services, along with their attributes and the complex relationships between them. Tracking these configuration items provides you with a comprehensive single source of truth for your IT operations, which enables your teams to understand dependencies, manage changes, resolve incidents, and make informed decisions about the IT environment. So ITAM and CMDB have differing but complementary objectives. ITAM is concerned with the discipline of asset management and content. So what do we actually have? And it enables tracking of valuable assets and ensures that they're being used efficiently, while CMDB is concerned with the configuration management discipline and context. So, how are our assets related? And this enables understanding of the relationships and dependencies between assets and the impacts that configuration changes would have on other connected assets. So a CMDB is essentially an outcome of the configuration management discipline, taking the time to record asset configuration details so that you can maintain that single source of truth, while ITAM is a process of actually managing the assets themselves. It's possible to integrate ITAM properties into a CMDB so that you can reap the full benefits of both approaches. And this is something that we're currently working on with the Crystal Eye version 6.0 release. And I'll be touching on where we're at with that towards the end of the demonstration today. So to put the benefits of an ITAM and a CMDB integration into context, let's have a look at a few example scenarios, beginning with this one. So let's imagine that we have two separate systems that are used and managed by two separate teams. System Y is used by one team and is dependent on System X, which is managed by another team. If the team responsible for System X were to perform maintenance on the system before conducting a thorough risk assessment to identify any potential impacts that this could have on other connected or dependent systems, this could lead to a potential incident where System Y goes offline or becomes otherwise unavailable, and thereby possibly causing a major disruption to operational capabilities and even leading to financial and reputational damage. A well-maintained CMDB prevents these kinds of scenarios by providing centralized and up-to-date information about asset dependencies, which can be referenced to assess the potential impacts of changes and maintenance efforts on other assets. As another example, let's imagine an organization with a strong IT asset management system but no CMDB. Now let's imagine the scenario where that organization's system administrator receives a nasty alert at 3 a.m. to inform them of a system outage. Even with access to the asset data in the ITAM, the system admin would still lack visibility over the various system relationships and dependencies, the users and business operations impacted by the outage, any SLAs that may be getting breached as a result of the outage, and the relevant vendors and support teams that they may need to contact for assistance. The admin would have to spend a significant amount of time to orient themselves to all of this information, leading to a delay in the resolution of the incident. A CMDB with centralized and up-to-date data, again, would prevent this kind of scenario by enabling faster triage, informed decision-making, and a quicker recovery time. Using a similar example, but applying it to a security operations context, allows us to see how a CMDB helps security teams with incident response and threat hunting activities. So if, for example, a SOC team were to receive an alert that a particular asset is trying to reach out to a command and control server, the CMDB would immediately tell the SOC team what the asset is, including its host name and IP address, who owns the asset or what business service it supports, and what other assets are connected. And this allows the SOC team to predict the potential blast radius of the incident and thereby enables prioritization for incident containment efforts by focusing on our critical assets first, tying into that benefit of faster triage. In a threat hunting scenario, access to the CMDB would allow the SOC team to more quickly and easily identify any unpatched or end-of-life assets, any shadow IT, and systems that are missing protections like EDR agents or logging coverage. These items often pose a security risk by providing adversaries with an entry point into the network. As I'll touch on in my Crystal Eye demonstration, the CMDB also allows security teams to map specific vulnerabilities to assets affected by those vulnerabilities and their respective criticalities, allowing the team to focus their hunting efforts on the highest risk areas. The CMDB is supposed to act as your single source of truth, keeping track of your network configurations as they are intended to be implemented and maintained in reality. By conducting occasional comparison reviews between the CMDB and actual configurations in practice, both security teams and system administrators can gain visibility into configuration drift over time, which could also highlight potential indicators of compromise. Now, these are just some generic examples. So as a final example, let's have a look at a specific use case using the manufacturing industry. So manufacturers rely on a complex ecosystem of IT and OT assets like programmable logic controllers, supervisory control and data acquisition systems, manufacturing execution systems, and enterprise resource planning systems to manage their production lines, logistics, and supply chains. Downtime or misconfigurations in any of these systems can lead to costly disruptions. By implementing a CMDB in these contexts, these admins would gain some of the following benefits, including unified asset visibility through the mapping of relationships between IT and OT assets. And this enables the tracking of asset lifecycle and ownership, altogether allowing for a proactive asset maintenance and upgrade planning approach. You also achieve the benefit of simplified change impact analysis by being able to identify dependencies between the systems and production lines, assets that will be affected by changes, and the warranty and support status of those assets, thereby reducing the risk of unplanned downtime from system outages. You also gain the benefit of incident response acceleration through the identification of the primary systems impacted and the connected systems likely to be affected as well. The CMDB provides you with asset details necessary for rapid triage and escalation, minimizing the business disruption and improving mean time to recovery. A CMDB also supports compliance and audit readiness through the ability to link your assets in the CMDB with relevant compliance controls required by standards like ISO 27001, as well as providing evidence of ownership, patch status, and asset lifecycle details. This streamlines the audit process by reducing the amount of manual effort required to gather evidence. And finally, you also achieve a cost optimization benefit through the tracking of asset depreciation and renewal cycles and highlighting of underutilized or redundant systems, enabling smarter budgeting and allowing for the consolidation of assets. So now let's imagine a scenario where a firmware vulnerability is discovered in a widely used industrial controller. Having a working CMDB would allow the IT team to instantly identify all affected controllers and both their physical and network locations, assess which production lines are at risk, schedule patching with a minimal impact on operations, and generate compliance reports to demonstrate a working vulnerability management procedure as audit evidence. Without the visibility offered by a CMDB, impact assessment would have required significant manual effort, resulting in slower response times and increased risk of compromise. So as we've mentioned, a new CMDB feature with ITAM functionality is currently in development for the Crystal Eye version 6.0 release. When a new device is connected to your Crystal Eye network, it will automatically be detected and visually represented in the Crystal Eye's network map, where you can view its MAC and IP addresses, as well as assign a device name and device type to it. The CMDB will automatically be populated with data ingested from this network map, at which point you can further enrich the data by adding device connections, relevant contacts, smart tags, and gaining the ability to view asset-specific vulnerabilities and SBOM data. The CMDB supports multiple Crystal-Eye deployments, so all of your devices that are visible from your Crystal-Eyes will be visible from a single pane of glass, giving you a comprehensive overview of all of your connected assets. So let's now actually have a look at CMDB itself. Let me just share my screen. Okay, so initially you'll be presented with this dashboard view, giving you a bit of a statistical summary of data from various submenus in the CMDB. As I've said, the CMDB supports multiple Crystal-Eye deployments, which we're representing as sites in the CMDB, with the thought process being that you have different Crystal-Eyes to protect your different sites. In this current instance, we have 3 sites, as we can see on the dashboard, or we can look at them from the organization drop-down on the side. So let's have a look at our sites. So here are our 3 sites, and they're currently being differentiated using the Crystal-Eyes host key as the device name, or the site name, sorry. So if I select this middle one, selecting the site gives us some information about the site itself. All of these fields can be manually populated using the edit button up here in the corner. So if you wanted to, you could record the physical address of this site and the time zone, if say you have sites in different states and therefore different time zones. But more importantly, we can see the related objects for the site. So that would be the actual devices and racks that we have at this location. Worth noting here that, of course, the Crystal-Eye doesn't have visibility over how your racks are set up. It can only see the devices in the network. So that is something that will require manual configuration. But let's actually have a look at the devices at this site. So we get a lovely little device list showing us all of the devices connected at this site. And we have a nice little simple office setup. So we've got 2 workstations, a gateway, that would be our actual Crystal-Eye. We have a NAS, a printer, and a switch to connect everything together. You can also manually add devices to this list if you have other devices at the site that maybe are not sitting behind the Crystal-Eye that you would also like to track in the CMDB. But this little overview gives us, this list gives us a bit of an overview of all of these various fields, like the relevant site, which rack the device sits in, if it is a rack device, the device role, and then some details about the manufacturer, as well as what the device actually is, and the device IP addresses. So if we have a look at a device more closely, let's have a look at the NAS, for example. For the most part, we get the same data that we could see from that device list, except now we have access to some additional fields, like this device's rack position. So we can see that this is in row 7. And if I scroll down a bit, you can actually, for your rack devices, get a bit of a visual representation of where the device sits in the rack itself. So we can see that we have our NAS here, and in the same rack, we also have our switch and our gateway. It's always nice to have a bit of visualization. Now, one of the points I labored quite extensively with my examples is CMDB's capability to show the relationships between your assets. So if I scroll back up and click on this Interfaces tab, we can see all of the interfaces, or all of the network interfaces on this particular device. So our NAS has 4 gigabit Ethernet ports. And then over on the right-hand side here, we can actually see how this device is connected to other devices. So we have port 1 connected to port 2 of our office switch using cable number 6. Now, that, of course, is assuming that we live in an ideal world where everyone correctly labels their cables. But what this actually also enables is, if for whatever reason, cable number 6 were to become disconnected from our devices, we can simply refer to the CMDB to see exactly where it is meant to be plugged in, completely removing all of the guesswork. So if I click on cable number 6, we can see that termination point A is port 1 of our NAS, and termination point B is port 2 of our switch. Here I can also select the switch to view some of our other connections, going to the interfaces. And here we can see how our other Office devices are connected to the switch. So again, we have the NAS on port 2, we have our printer on port 3, and 2 workstations on ports 5 and 6. All right, so I'll go back to the NAS. Now, one of the major benefits that you get from the integration between this CMDB feature and the Crystal-Eye itself is the ability to have your Crystal Eye vulnerability scan findings recorded directly against the relevant devices, which really helps to support your organization's vulnerability management processes through being able to identify those assets that are particularly at risk, especially if they are critical assets. So I can access the vuln scan findings by clicking this vuln scan finding button. And once this page is done loading, it'll tell us the specific vulnerabilities that have been identified for this device during the vuln scan. So we get these fields giving us the actual vulnerability CVE, its severity rating, a description of what the vulnerability itself is, some recommendations for remediation, and some references for additional details on the CVE itself. In the same vein as the vuln scan results, the Crystal Eye integration also allows us to record specific software bill of materials data for our assets. We collect SBOM data in two ways. The first is as part of a vulnerability scan done on a container, like a Docker container, for example. The vulnerability scan would retrieve the SBOM data in that scanning process. The other way is through our CSER application. CSER is our Crystal Eye attack surface reduction security application that you can actually download directly from the compliance controls section of your Crystal Eye management interface, and then you can install it on your Microsoft end user devices. Once the CSER application is launched on an end user device, it will automatically scan that device and retrieve the SBOM data, which will then be ingested into the CMDB. So if I go back to our list of assets and we look at an end user device, so Gary's workstation will do. Again, we can view the SBOM data by simply clicking on this View SBOM Data button. And again, once this page is done loading, it'll give us some information about the specific software identified on this device. So we have the software name, versions, and vendors where applicable. Another useful feature is the ability to apply tags to our various assets. Tagging can be used for a range of different purposes. You'll be able to create your own tags, so you can use them in whatever creative ways you can come up with. But some particularly beneficial uses of tags include data classification tags to help us identify assets that contain sensitive information, as well as access control tags to indicate which user groups or roles have access to that particular asset. So again, if I return to my asset list and we have a look at, say, our office printer, here we can see we have user role tags for general employees and system administrators. So both of these roles will have access to the printer, obviously for different use cases. Again, if I return to our device list and look at, say, the NAS, we can see here we have a data classification tag, and this is restricted. Therefore, as you would expect, only system administrators have access to the NAS. So using these tags, you can quickly identify sensitive assets that require greater levels of protection, like encryption, tightened access restrictions, and greater levels of monitoring and data loss prevention control. By clicking on a tag, it will present you with a list of all of the devices with that tag. So if you wanted to quickly identify all of your assets with highly sensitive information, you simply click on that tag and you'll get this list. So for our demonstration here, we only have the NAS as a restricted data classification asset. And then finally, let's go to our printer here. For today's, one last thing for today's presentation. In the event that you were to encounter some form of problem with a particular piece of infrastructure and you needed to get in contact with the relevant support engineer, you can actually maintain your list of contacts in the CMDB itself. So we have this contacts tab. So we have a brother printer's printer here. Let's say we encountered some form of problem and we needed to contact someone from brother printer's support. You can record that contact information in this contact tab. So here we have as our primary contact, John Brother. He's our vendor support engineer, and we have his relevant contact information. And that is everything for the demonstration from the CMDB perspective. I'll pass back to Dana for some questions.
Yes, on the right-hand side, you'll see a chat bar. If you do have any questions, we are opening up to the floor now. Feel free to drop them in the chat bar. And while I'm there, thank you very much, Brendan and Arjun, for presenting today. We do knowledge sprints monthly, so stay up to date by visiting Red Piranha's event page or following us on LinkedIn. Still waiting for any questions from the team? Thank you. We've just had the Red Piranha events page link dropped there, so save that in your browser. A question from Adam. Does this help with assist with the incident response process?
It certainly does. So if you were to, as I covered in some of the examples, if you were to experience an incident, your security team or your general IT team, whoever is in charge of handling that incident, will be able to use the CMDB to identify the affected asset and any other assets connected to it. So let's say a particular asset were to get infected with ransomware, they can see any other devices on that network connected to that device that the ransomware potentially could spread to. So yeah, as I've covered with some of those examples, it really helps with quick triage on the incidents.
Thank you. Question from Kira. What is the reaction time if something were to become disconnected?
Are you talking about like a physical cable disconnection?
Assume so.
Yeah, well, that will so you'll probably experience that in your environment through some network problem. You're not able to reach a particular asset for whatever reason. So your network engineer or your IT team, whoever's in charge of that, will be able to go to, say, your server room and identify, oh, there's a loose cable. This is the problem. Again, they can reference the CMDB and see that, okay, this cable is meant to be connected to this device and this device.
Fantastic, thank you. Another question from Adam. Can this integration with Crystal Eye help with shadow IT?
Yes, because the CMDB is meant to be your single source of truth. It's meant to show what assets are in your network. So if you're engaging in like a network audit and you identify devices that are not in your CMDB, then that potentially highlights those devices as being shadow IT, or it could also be a process failure where someone has failed to correctly update the actual CMDB database itself.
Fantastic. Hope that answers your question, Adam. James, is there a limitation on the CMDB if we have many IoT assets?
No. As long as your devices are visible to the Crystal Eye, they will be automatically ingested from the network map. And as I've said, even if they're not sitting behind a Crystal Eye, you can manually go and add those devices into the CMDB yourself.
Fantastic. If there's any more questions, one more. Can you have multiple contacts for one?
You absolutely can have multiple contacts. For the demonstration purposes, I only used one simple one. But yes, if you have, say, secondary contacts for a particular company, you can absolutely record that as well.
Excellent. Just keeping an eye on the time. We like to keep these sessions within the 30 minutes. I will ask if there's any more questions before we wrap up. Oh, I think that's it. Thank you all for joining us today. If you're interested in any more of Red Piranha's webinars or knowledge sprints, they do get loaded on our YouTube channel. We might drop a link in there shortly. But if not, we'll close out for today and we look forward to seeing you at next month's knowledge sprint. I think a comment there from Ganasan, complete information from unauthorized device will be captured. Can we confirm that?
I'm not sure what that is in reference to.
Can you elaborate further on your question there? Such as the device's OS details and MAC address.
Yeah, so if the device is connected to your Crystal Eye, it will automatically ingest the MAC address. The operating system, you may need to add yourself in the CMDB.
There we go. If you do have any further questions on this session, feel free to also email us at info@redpiranha.net and you will be assigned a contact. Thank you. All right. Thank you all. Have a lovely day ahead. And we'll see you at the next knowledge sprint.
Thank you, everyone.